Hello there. It's Elaine Lindsay with True Social Media. I am your host for BBP TV show, and I'm really excited today to be back. I know I say that all the time, but I truly am excited today to be back here with my guest, Stan Phelps. Hi.
Hey, Elaine.
We've done this quite a number of times.
I
I
think going back to at least the first or the second book. So it's
Purple goldfish, yeah. Lanyap is on my. I swear I must say it at least once a month. I tell someone what that means. But yeah, we go back as far as 2012, and I just want to take a minute and give you kind of an idea of why I think Stan's amazing. Okay. We're going to talk today, by the way, about his latest book in the goldfish series, and that's Diamond Goldfish.
right.
Okay. This is all about, I guess, going the extra mile, which is a central tenet in the entire goldfish series. And it's a key driver of differentiation. Lagniappe, which I already said, is a Creole word for a little something extra. And I have to say that Stan and all he writes and all he does really embodies that. He is a TEDx speaker, a Forbes contributor, an IBM Futurist. He's the founder of Stan Phelps Speaks and Purple Goldfish, which is a think tank of customer experience and employee engagement experts based in frontier at the frontier in Research Triangle Park,
Yeah,
and I believe
RTP.
that's in South
North
South
Carolina.
North Carolina. I always get that wrong. Okay, not sure why. But I really think, first of all, I'm going to say take notes. This one is really going to blow you away. I've enjoyed every book that I've gone over with Stan, but I have to say, I said to him even before we came on here in the green room, I think this is the epitome of what we need, not just for business, but in life.
In life. Yeah.
So, hello.
That's quite an intro. Thank you. And I'm glad that it really resonated. This is the ninth color in the series.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think it's something that's very foundational for people.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, it's probably the most complete book in the fact that, there's an assessment for free inside the book. You learn about yourself and what your own style is. But more importantly, it allows you, if you can understand yourself, to focus on whoever you're potentially either selling to or the relationships that you manage to manage them more effectively.
Yeah, I just want to interject something there because I think it's really important, and we may have touched on this before, but I firmly believe, okay, that each and every one of us on the planet has to be a salesperson. Because whether you're dealing with your spouse, your CEO, your customer, your child, or your dog, you
Everyone's
have,
calling, yeah.
yeah, you have to sell what it is that you either want them to do, where you want them to go, or how you want them to act. So, in essence, humans were built for sales. That's the whole point of communication. And I know I'm kind of simplifying it, but I think again, this is why this is so incredible. And talk about the start of the book, the first whole section, which is the why, which I think is brilliant.
Right.
But you've subtitled that section "Upgrading Your Humanware," which it's like yes. So
Yeah, it's the idea of trying to create, we would say, your operating system of how you deal with other people. And the idea of why it's called a diamond is based on this idea of what we call the diamond rule.
yeah.
And that's the 4.0 version, we believe, of operating successfully and thriving in business. And so if that's the 4.0, we have to I think we have to take a couple steps back and go,
Yeah.
well, what's 1.0, what's 2.0, and what's 3.0? And for the 1.0, you have to go all the way back to the days of Confucius. And back in those days, they coined what's called the silver rule. And the silver rule is this idea of, this is exactly the rule. What I wish others not to do unto me, I also wish not to do unto others. So essentially it means just do no harm.
Yeah.
And so it's not a bad, we call it like a foundational thing.
Yeah.
In terms of how to act, just don't do bad stuff. In fact, we talk about in the book that when Google first started, its central code of conduct and central tenet was do no evil.
Yep.
Or do no harm. And they've seemed to have done okay with that. They actually changed it 4 years ago to do the right thing.
Yes. Which
kind of leads us to the 2.0. And so every culture and every religion throughout the world has 2.0. Yeah. And the 2.0 is the golden rule. And that's simply, treat others the way that you would like to be treated. Yeah. So not only don't do bad stuff, but also do good stuff, right? The way that you wanted to be treated, you would treat others that same way. And it's a pretty admirable way of acting. In fact, it's a great thing if you're teaching your children, for example.
Yeah.
But the problem is that in business, it kind of sets you up for failure. Because if I treat Elaine Lindsay the way that Stan Phelps wants to get treated, there's no guarantee that you're exactly like me. And what we talk about in Elaine in the book is that and we'll get into it, there's 4 behavioral styles. So think about it. Unless you and I are the same behavioral style, there's a chance that we're not going to connect 3 out of 4 times. And so, it's not a great rule for sales or managing relationships. The 3.0 rule was made popular by Dr. Tony Alessandra back in the 1990s, and that's the platinum rule.
Yeah.
And so if the golden rule is, inward facing, the platinum rule is all about outward. So it's essentially treat others the way they want to get treated, which makes sense, right? Instead of me treating Elaine the way that Stan wants to get treated, it says, no, actually learn about Elaine and what Elaine wants. And then what you do is you give it to her.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely an upgrade on the golden rule. The challenge is if I'm neglecting myself, right, and how I feel, and I'm focusing on you 100%, we know in life when the pressure starts to rise, right, if we lose focus on ourselves, things can very quickly go off track.
Yeah.
And so the platinum rule is a good plan, but as we write in the book, in the words of Mike Tyson, everyone has a plan right until they get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
And so, again, platinum is better than gold. The 4.0, which we call the diamond rule in the book, really brings the best elements of both gold and platinum together. And what the diamond rule says, it says manage yourself under pressure, right? So understand your own style and try to neutralize your style, which then allows you to focus on the other person. And if you can understand their style, you can understand their concerns, and you can work to reduce the pressure that they feel. And so the idea of playing at the diamond level, managing pressure, because in sales and client management, it's very easy to go along when everything's going well.
Yeah.
The challenge is what happens when the pressure starts to ratchet up. And so, diamond is, I think, the aspirational where you want to go, to act in that. Manage yourself, but then empathize with others. And then the goldfish and the why has been the constant thing throughout the entire book. Most goldfish only grow to be the size of your thumb, 3 inches or 9 or 10 centimeters. But the biggest ones in the world grow to be almost 50 centimeters or 20 inches. And think about that for a second. That's 6 times the size. And so there's, not to give everything away, but really quickly, there's 5 reasons why a goldfish grows. And it's the same 5 reasons that any business grows. And the quick punchline is the only one of those growth factors that you have control over is how you differentiate yourself.
Yeah.
And so I think if you're in sales and if you're in client success and client management, one of the ways that you can differentiate yourself is by upgrading your humanware in order to deal more effectively with either the prospect or the client that you already have. And that's essentially the why behind the book.
That's absolutely a perfect description as well. And I like the fact that there, with the diamond rule, there's more focus on handling your own pressure, but that's keeping you in the equation, which makes a huge difference. And I think we're at a place in this world where we need to be accountable for ourselves.
Right. And be, every study has shown that more important than just raw intelligence is emotional intelligence.
Oh yeah.
And one of the great quotes that we share in the book is from Viktor Frankl.
Yes.
Holocaust survivor, Austrian neuroscientist. And he talks about this idea that between stimulus, so a situation that triggers us, between stimulus and our response, that there is space.
Yeah.
And in that space is our ability to choose how we respond. And he says, in that choice lies our growth and our freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea that, our brain is hardwired to react. We have millions of years of evolution that has designed our brain in very practical ways. And so it's not a matter of trying to rewire our brain or our instincts, but if we can understand and become aware of them, then we can manage better on how we respond. And so the second, or a lot of the bit of the why is starting to understand the 3 parts of the brain, how we respond under pressure, and how our brain can make us act in ways that are anything but logical and rational.
Yeah.
And so what comes out of that is, there are many types of assessments out there, but my co-authors are part of a company called Market Force, and they've really developed these 4 styles based on how we respond under pressure.
Right.
And it's based on survival strategies.
Yeah.
And so there's essentially 4 different ways that you can respond. And it's very easy to maybe share this from an animal perspective, because I think that helps drive it home.
Yeah.
But for the first type of survival style is what we call for animal, the rhino. right? What does a rhino do when it feels threatened or under pressure? Right?
Yeah.
It just charges right at the situation, right? And right into to try to control the situation. All right. The second style is what we call the deer style, or the deer quadrant. And so what does a deer or a bird do when they're under pressure and they feel that they're under pressure?
They're gone.
They're gone. They fly away, right? They're built for speed. They're going to go somewhere else to try to influence their surrounding into something that's more suited to the environment. The third style is what we call the porcupine style. And so what does a porcupine do when they're under pressure, or even a turtle do under pressure?
They freeze and hide.
They just hunker down, right? And they ride it out. You know, a turtle would go back into its shell. The porcupine would go into a ball with the quills. And so their survival strategy is to tolerate and just ride it out and withstand. So far you had a dictate strategy. You try to control and go right towards it. You have a migrate strategy. You fly away. Or you have the tolerate strategy. The fourth survival strategy is what we call the bear style, or bear quadrant. And this is the idea that when a bear or a snake or a rodent, when food starts to become scarce and the environment starts to put pressure on them, they're physiologically built to do what? Go to shut their body down, in essence, and go to sleep for long periods, and then wake back up when things are better. And so that's the hibernate strategy. And so those kind of four survival strategies are the drivers for the four behavioral styles. Right. And so that first rhino one, which I know you're familiar with, Elaine, is what we call a control style. Yeah. So they're going to rush right into it. They're very much about thinking and about the plan and looking at the future. That second style, the bird or the deer, is what's called influence. So influences live in the now. They're all about ideas. They're all about action, like let's get to work. And they just live in the moment. And when they feel like they're under pressure, they're just like, get me out of here. I need to go somewhere else. Cut and run, right? Yep. That porcupine style is what we call a power style. We're just going to power through and tolerate, right? Let's continue with the plan. Power people love to be busy. They love to do checking stuff off on the to-do list. You know, they live in a 90-day time frame in the future. They're like the workhorse. Let's get it done. That the last style, which is like the bear, which we said was kind of the hibernate style, is what we call an authority. And so authorities kind of live in the rear view mirror. Right. And they're all about, and they're important to have, because they're all about, let's improve what we've already done. Yeah. Let's look at the quality and why we're doing it and how we're measuring it. But they tend to live in the past, and they like to have all of the information. Okay. So they're not going to make a decision unless they feel like they're an authority and know everything. And if they don't, in absence of knowing all of that, what are they going to do? They'll just kind of shut it down and not make any decisions. And so what's interesting, as I mentioned before in the book, is that it's a 20-question assessment that's online. When you buy the book, you get a code that you can use. And So it's first learning about what your own style is, and then, you know, it's in the book we talk about a process of starting to understand and look for cues on those that you deal with to understand who they are.
And better understand how yourself first, so that you can then work with those other styles.
Exactly. Understand yourself and what triggers you so you can neutralize that and then be able to focus on the other person to get them what they need.
That's, yeah, absolutely. So here's a one. So what's your style?
So I am an off the chart influence.
Oh wow.
And this is, you know, you were just mentioning before we started that once you started to read it, you're like, wow, this is, you know, it explains a lot about yourself, right?
Oh yeah.
But for me, you know, I'm all about the idea, like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
everything is limitless. Let's come up with the idea. And once we make the idea, I'm like, what are we waiting for? Let's go, go, go. Yeah. So I think I was a 9 for influence. Wow. And maybe you max out at 10. I mean, that's off the chart.
That really is. Wow.
Yeah. And I know it myself when I feel like I lose freedom and I'm being told what to do and I'm not enjoying it.
Yeah.
All I want to do is get the heck out.
Yeah.
You know, for you being a control, what were some of the things that, you know, resonated with you as you read about your style?
Well, you know, focusing on the good stuff, focusing on what comes next.
Right.
Okay. Because I tend to see the big picture. I can see all the pieces that need to come to, and there is some future there. One of the things that was priceless, it basically said, you know, when there's details and little bits and pieces, I tend to hand that off. Okay. My husband cracked up because stuff comes in the mail or, you know, bills come in or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll do the banking, but you read the fine print. I don't have time for that. Which is so very true. And the strengths as well as the weaknesses were really, really highlighted, because I tend to be a little short on I do not suffer fools gladly, which makes you kind of impatient, and that's not always good. You know, in with so many years of experience, having been here for quite a while,
right,
I do have an understanding of, you know, I have to kind of back off a little sometimes, because I can be a bit much, somewhat like a charging rhino.
But you know, I could see that, you know, under pressure, you go right towards it, right? You're not going to back away. And what's in for controls, in an absence of them seeing that there's a plan, because they always want to know that there's a plan and a strategy.
Yeah.
You know, they can charge right in. And sometimes for the other styles, they can see that as a little off-putting.
Oh, yeah.
And so what's interesting is, I think, for me, as I went through this, because Travis and Tony are doing this on a day in, day out at Market Force Global.
Right.
They own the indicator. They've coached and they do training in this day in, day out. But what's interesting for me is I read about the other styles. I started to think about some of the relationships I have.
Yeah.
And think that, hey, you know, that person is not, you know, off-putting to me because they're doing it on purpose.
Yeah.
That's just who they are, right? And what you realize is that it wouldn't be great if on a team there were 4 controls or 4 influences, right? Or if you understand that when you're selling to a group of stakeholders, you can't just sell one way.
Oh.
You need to be able to address the needs of everyone in the group. And what's interesting is, for me as an influence, I'm all about relationships. Yeah. So I tend to gravitate towards kind of warmth and sincerity. Whereas, just like you said, you don't suffer fools gladly. Before you get into the relationship bit, just this is what your style gravitates to. You want to know that not only is this person smart that's in front of you, but they also have demonstrated the ability to get your ideas.
Yeah.
And
exactly what you said, because I was thinking, oh, okay, well, that person is definitely an authority. And that makes sense. Yeah, they're not trying to be annoying. It's just how they function.
Right.
Now, with that in mind, here's my question. I think I have a 6 for control, and then I'm 5 in influence.
Right.
Okay. Is there, some spectrum that people are on in terms of the different 4 styles? Like, are there styles that are sort of a butt well, or?
Yeah, it's a great point. So I know when you've read the book, it looks kind of like a clock, right?
Yeah.
And so you have control up here at the top, and then over here at 3 o'clock you have influence, power, and then authority. And so what's interesting is, ideally for someone, they move kind of in a clockwise fashion, right? Okay. So for you being if things are going well, you'll move in a clockwise fashion.
Right.
So you come up with the strategy, or you're thinking about the plan, and then it's next, well, what ideas do we have to do to make this work? Yeah. Right? And then if you continue to move forward, a power is all about, all right, what are the systems that we have to put in place and breaking it up into tasks to get it done.
Yeah. Right? See, mine are backwards. Those 2 are backwards.
So what happens is, sometimes when we feel like we're under pressure, we start to move backwards. So as a control, instead of you being future based, if you had to move backwards, it would force you to go to an authority, start to look way into the past. Maybe it'll be a little paralyzed. Wow. But here is the thing, is that you operate on a day-to-day basis in all 4 of the styles.
Yeah.
Right? There are some days when you have to be a planner, some days where it's all about coming up with ideas in the moment, some days it's about checking stuff off the list, and some days it's looking back to go, how can we improve, or right. Is what we're doing effective, right? That's the authority. And so we operate, when things are going well, in all 4 of those things.
Good.
In fact, the biggest compliment anyone could ever tell you is, I don't know if I can actually tell what your style is.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But the thing is, once the pressure starts to raise, we typically tend to default to our natural style.
Yeah.
And that's the idea, is if we can understand the concerns of each style, we can learn to address those concerns before they rise to become problems.
Okay. So taking all that into account and understanding then that everybody operates in all of them.
Right.
It makes a lot of sense to understand what each one is, so that it's easier for you to identify when you are interacting with others.
Right. I was just going to show that has the breakdown of the 4 styles.
Yeah. I was going to say, just move it to your left a little.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Does that work?
Yep. That's much better.
And then I was going to show you I'm going to really quickly show you the animals there. You can see how the different animals there for the, again, from a survival perspective. So it's neat. And what's kind of cool in the book is that Tony and Travis, I mean, this methodology has been around for decades.
Yeah.
And so they've worked with literally hundreds, thousands of leaders and hundreds of companies. And so in the book, what's neat is we extracted over 200 stories. So in the book, and I'd be interested in your thoughts on it, we have these call outs where it's actually a real situation.
Yeah.
Where a leader was saying, I'm an influence, but this is how I managed with an authority. So it goes beyond just the theory of this.
Oh, yeah.
Getting down to how do you actually put it into effect?
And those little case studies, those little, sort of snapshots of what somebody did in that instance, I think are really, really useful. The other thing is you have here as well a matrix.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And just, I'll go back for a second, but in your book, Gray Goldfish, you had an incredible matrix that worked with the different generations and how you manage there.
Right.
Which was great. This, I think, takes that so many steps further because you're dealing with your own process and pressure levels and what have you first, which makes it easier because it doesn't matter what generation, they're all going to fit into these behavioral styles.
Exactly. It's I think there's a lot. I really liked Gray in the fact that, there's 5 different generations. You have to understand your own generational preferences and style. But to your point, you could go down and it was very quick in terms of how do you recruit, how do you train, how do you manage. And I'm going to see if I'll show an example here in the book of the matrix. But what the matrix does is once you understand your own personal style, it then gives you a recipe for how do you deal with the other 4 styles. And the added point to your point, Elaine, is it's about how do you manage yourself first and then
empathize with them.
Exactly. To put yourself in the right frame of mind, given your style, to be in a more successful place. And so what I love, and gray and diamond have been the last 2 colors in this, is that it really gives you a reference that you can go back to.
Yes.
And very quickly, as before you walk into a meeting, or if you're dealing with an issue with a coworker or a prospect or a client, it says, all right, let me go back and just try to understand this and get a little better grounding of how I can set myself up for success.
Absolutely.
Because there's a lot to be learned here. And let's be honest, our ability to retain isn't any near as important as the ability to apply and experiment and iterate and continue to work with the material. So we're super excited. I'll show you. This is actually a better handout for it.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it go, literally you go over here. It has all of the columns. In the book, it has, one of these for each of the styles throughout the book. But this is a great at a glance.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Yeah. Right. I thought maybe for a second I had the gray one I could show, but I don't.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I have 4 hard drives, so it would take us a little while for me to go get it. Because I should have had that to hand because I knew I wanted to talk about it.
Handy dandy in the back of the book. So, yeah, that's an example of the gray.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this one's generational. And that's what it looks like when it's full on. But Brian did a great job on that. Travis and Tony were big time helpful. Again, get to the point where I think people can use it and go back to it.
Yeah. I think they are, in fact, reference books that you need to have if you're going to manage not just an office, but I firmly believe this would be really useful as a parent, as a grandparent, okay,
Right.
as a sister, as a brother or whatever. It can give you, that understanding, and as Viktor Frankl says, that time, take a beat before you react.
Right.
You know,
Don't succumb to the whole idea is, and this idea of upgrading your humanware is, you don't want to succumb to your biology.
yeah, yeah. We are more than our biology, absolutely.
Yeah. And we go deep into the book, but I mean the really quick thinking or example I would give you is that we have three parts of our brain. Right at the base of our skull, the most primitive part of our brain, the kind of lizard brain, is the amygdala.
Yeah.
And that it's about the size of an almond. It's super small. And its sole job is to constantly be scanning for what?
For survival.
Right.
Danger.
It's looking for threats.
And it hasn't changed. For as long as we have been on the planet, our lizard brain is exactly the same as it was when there were saber-toothed tigers.
Right, right. And here's the thing. What's funny is that we live in a I mean, you wouldn't know it by watching the news, but this is the safest time ever to live on this planet. Yeah. The times that we're actually in an actual threat of danger to our lives is minuscule. It's minuscule.
Yeah.
The sad thing is that the amygdala is wrapped in what's called the limbic system.
Yes.
And the limbic system is the thing that controls all of our bodily functions. So our sweat glands, our breathing, our heart. And the last part of our brain is actually the biggest part of our brain. It's the entire neocortex. Yes. And that's the thinking part of the brain, right? That's what makes us uniquely human as humans. And that's where language, art, complex reasoning comes into case. But the challenge is it works perfectly until one thing happens. And that's when we feel like we're under threat.
Yeah.
And the greatest example to share, and it's something I do for a living, I should wear, there's this t-shirt that the NSA has. It says, "I make my living from your greatest fear."
Yeah.
So think about public speaking, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
No one has ever literally died giving a talk.
No.
But what happens, even for me as an experienced professional, when I get up on the stage, everyone starts to feel it. Yeah. Because what happens is it's not a threat to our lives, it's a threat to our identity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And our brain doesn't tell the difference between an actual threat and a perceived threat to our identity. And what does the amygdala do? It starts to light up. It sends signals to our limbic system. And why do we start to sweat? Why do we start to breathe a little more labored? Why does our heart start to beat when we get up to speak? It's because that's nature and biology kicking in.
Yeah.
Why can't we think? Because once that thing starts to happen, the adrenaline, it shuts down the thinking part of the brain.
Yeah.
The
thinking part comes last. It always does.
Right. And so if we can be aware that that's happening, we can start to adapt and respond differently.
Yeah.
We can acknowledge that it's happening and ideally rise above it.
Yeah.
And one of the metaphors for a diamond is, how are diamonds made?
Yeah.
They're just a piece of coal that did really well under what?
Under pressure. Yeah.
And that's I think the key, if we want to have less stress and more success in business, is those critical times when we're under pressure.
Yeah. And it's interesting because as they say, when we know better, we do better.
Mm,
And the fact is, once you look into this, once you learn, once somebody reads the diamond goldfish, you can't unknow it. And it can like automatically give you that pause,
right,
because you now can no longer just, well, yeah, that was biology or whatever, because that's not true. You now know that you have the ability to take a beat
right.
between what happened and your reaction. And
Yeah,
I think that's fascinating, and I think that's why this is an incredibly useful reference book for people to be able to, you know, be their better selves in any situation.
right, right. Which, yeah, that's our hope, that it's not only your professional relationships, but also your personal
Yeah.
relationships. Um, and one of the, we talk about, we go in the book of literally taking you through all the different steps
Yeah.
in the sales process,
Yes.
from
Yeah.
setting the foundation for success to the first meeting to kind of working the sale and closing the sale to, all right, how do you manage on a day-to-day basis? How do you acknowledge success, hopefully, if there's success?
Yeah.
And how do you set up for the next time that you
Yeah.
resell to that client? So it
And how
really does the whole life cycle.
yeah.
Um,
And adding that certain lagniappe in making sure that you're there to add value even when that project's finished, when that sale is done.
right. And understanding that, you wouldn't acknowledge that success the same exact way for
No.
everyone,
No.
because they're based on their style. Unless they're exactly like you, it's not going to resonate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I thought that part was really interesting because um, for you, I guess it's celebration is a big thing, and
yeah, let's
celebration.
party.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Let's
and
go out. Let's celebrate.
fun with others. Yes, yes, that's why you have bar stories, right? But for an authority, that would be that's not important. It's the past and how we got there that
Right,
matters.
right.
So even understanding those pieces can make a huge difference. And yeah, I lost the where I wanted to go with it, but it was, we tend to, as humans, uh, how you do one thing is how you do pretty much everything.
Right.
So as you improve in one area, one thing, you are automatically going to improve all those other bits as well.
Right.
So
Right.
there again, that's pretty helpful.
Yeah. So it's we're excited about it. It came out last week. We did a nice event in New York City to launch it,
Yeah.
and again, Travis and Tony with their company Market Force this is all they do on a day in, day out basis. But I really am excited to be able to introduce this to all of the people who know maybe some of the other colors.
Yes.
But to get back to where you started, everyone today is in sales.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And everyone's in relationship management.
Yep.
So I love this as a real foundational aspect of the entire series. And it really builds on a lot of the stuff that we've talked about in the previous books.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So with that in mind, I got to ask, what led you to this piece, to understanding this tool that these guys have, and how that fits in with the goldfish series?
Yeah, so great story. I do you know Ted Curtin by chance?
No, of them don't know him.
Okay. So back in the days of Us Guys, I met hashtag us guys. connected with Ted. We became pretty good friends. He ended up spending some time at the agency that I had worked at. And he had met this guy, Travis Carson. And so Travis lives out in Arizona, but they were both at the Lake Placid Ironman triathlon.
Oh, okay.
And so they started talking to each other, and he started telling Travis about the purple goldfish and what I did. And Travis started telling Ted about Market Force and the work that he did.
Okay.
Travis is a tennis player when he was younger. That's my background. He's also a lawyer and has his MBA. Similar. He put us both together. Short story long, the president of our company ended up bringing Travis and his team in. We learned the Market Force methodology.
Okay.
At the time, I was driving development, so it was helpful for me. We had a couple of our best years at the agency, and a lot of that, I think, was due to managing the relationships we had and being more successful at closing the opportunities that we were presented.
Yeah.
And so I had kept in touch with Travis. And a couple of years ago, I thought to myself, at some point I would really like to tackle both sales and leadership.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things when you put that out to the universe.
Yeah.
Within 2 months, Brian reached out, who you know, Brian Doyle,
yep,
and said, hey, I'm thinking I'd really like to do a leadership book using generational insights. And I went in. And not even a month later, Travis reached out and said, our clients have always asked for us to do a book around Market Force. And I said, hey, I believe in it.
Yeah.
I think it can make a difference. And I could definitely see it as a potential, the sales book within the series. So, be careful what you wish for.
No, I think it's wonderful. Like, just keep wishing for things. I truly believe, I said in the green room, I think this is the best one yet. I can honestly say I've loved every book. I would say probably Pink Goldfish is my next favorite because, well, let's face it, I can be a bit of a freak at times. So it just suits me to be flawsome.
Right. What makes us weird is what makes us wonderful, right?
Absolutely.
And this is a consistent theme from here is, what makes us, and sometimes what makes us unique sometimes can be perceived as what makes us weak.
Yeah.
Right. So some people would say, well, if you're born an authority, you should figure out ways to be more like an influence. Or if you're born an influence, you should, be a little more introspective, right?
Yeah.
That's not a reality. You are who you are.
Yeah.
Why not try to be the best version of who you are? And how do you work with others to understand them and get the best out of them? So there's a little bit of, there's some nice carryover between those two books.
Oh, synergy. I like that synergy. It's good. No, I totally agree, because for me to put on another personality would be like wearing a suit backwards. You just be so hampered. It just not important.
Right.
One thing you said there that I think is really important, and I have to fess up, it took me a really long time in my life to understand that my flaws and the fact that I was kind of unique was actually beneficial and not detrimental. And sadly, there's a lot of people out there like me.
Right.
So I think all of this is incredibly helpful to help people understand, what their walk is, and then enjoy it.
Right. Good stuff. As we wrap up, any other questions about the book or?
other than we will have on the website, on the page, there will be all the areas where you can pick up the book. And there's a picture of the book. I don't have one of those, so we'll definitely get one of those.
We got to hook you up
on the site. Oh no, I meant the picture. I got the book.
Oh, there you go. Gotcha.
Yeah. What I think is really incredible, don't just get the book, okay? Get the book and go into the book, get your code, and go get yourself assessed so that you know what your behavioral style is. And that's can only help you in your relationships with other people. Now, as per usual, before I say thank you, and once again, you're just amazing, what's one thing that the audience can implement in their lives kind of immediately, whether personal or business, something that you use, some little nugget that you find useful on a daily basis?
I'll share one recommendation that we make in the book, and that's trying to be more aware of how you're feeling in any given moment, and start to be cognizant of times where you get triggered. And so what happens is we develop these patterns where we can't get out of patterns because we're so quick to get triggered. And once we get triggered, we start to act irrationally. Yeah. So I think it's just, we talk about, I think there's a lot of talk out there about being mindful.
Yes.
Right. And so I think it's just a matter of being more aware and kind of making a mental note when you feel like you start to get amped up or triggered.
That's excellent. And I'm going to just add a bit to that. It's not just mindful. Sometimes you have to be bodyful to understand those feelings, that pressure, that the sweating, the sweaty palms, the clenched stomach, all of those things are what people really need to pay attention to. And that can help you too.
Right. Right.
So on that note, once again, I say thank you ever so much, Stan. This has been awesome. The book, I cannot tell you just how jazzed I am about the book. Although being thought of as a rhinoceros, don't know how thrilled I was with that particular, not the most feminine, but hey.
How about another one in that category is a beaver. So a beaver likes to try to control the environment. Beaver tails popular right now. Yes. Up in Ottawa, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's about the only thing that's popular up here right now because we're frozen. And actually, I can't complain today because it's actually like 34 degrees in Fahrenheit. Okay.
Right.
So yeah, and most thankful because it was minus 18 a day and a half ago. So nice big change, and we're definitely thankful for that. So I am going to say once again, thank you, Stan. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Elaine Lindsay, True Social Media. This is BBP TV Show, and we will see you next time. Make your day amazing.